History books say one thing. DNA says something else. Hold up. Don't scroll yet, because in the next few seconds, something you were taught in school is about to get very uncomfortable. History textbooks love clean stories, straight lines, simple arrows on maps. Nice. Tidy timelines that make teachers happy. But DNA woke up one day and said, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." Scientists expected Native American DNA to point in one clear direction, one route, one origin, one answer. Instead, DNA said, surprise, multiple paths, unexpected links, timelines that don't agree with history books. And the results were so strange that even scientists had to pause and say, wait, that shouldn't be there. So let me ask you this. If DNA is physical evidence written inside the human body, and history books are written by humans, who do you think is more likely to be wrong? Pause the video for a second. Seriously, think about it. Drop your answer in the comments right now. DNA or history books? And listen, if this kind of mind-bending truth excites you, hit the like button so the algorithm knows you're awake today. Subscribe because this channel exists to question what we think we already know. And share this video with that friend who loves saying, "History already figured this out?" Because in the next few minutes, we're going to see how DNA quietly walked into the room, looked at centuries of history, and said, "Yeah, we need to talk. Don't blink." All right, let's talk about what history books actually taught us. You probably remember this part, because it was presented like case closed. The classic story goes like this. A long, long time ago, during the Ice Age, sea levels dropped, and a land bridge appeared between Siberia and Alaska. Boom! The Bering Land Bridge. According to the textbooks, people crossed it once, in one main wave, at one specific time. And just like that, Native Americans arrived in the Americas. Simple. Neat. End of story. Teachers loved this theory. Why? Because it was easy to explain, easy to draw on the board, easy to test you on. When did people cross? Where did they come from? Or what was the name of the bridge? If you wrote about the Bering Land Bridge, you passed. And for decades, this wasn't taught as a theory. It was taught as a settled history. No debate. No footnotes saying, hey, this might change later. Because at the time, there wasn't much physical evidence to argue against it. No ancient DNA. No advanced genetics, just archaeology, migration patterns, and educated guesses. So textbooks did what textbooks do best. They cleaned up the mess, straightened the timeline, and turned a complex human journey into a straight arrow across a map. On screen, this is where it always says, simple story, clean timeline. But here's where things get interesting, because history didn't lie to you. It just told the best story it could. Before DNA showed up with new receipts. And that's where the real problem begins. And then, DNA entered the conversation, not with an opinion, not with a theory, but with receipts. Now, quick pause, because genetic testing sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. Think of DNA like a biological history book written inside every cell of your body. No erasing, no editing, no oops, we forgot to mention this chapter. Scientists take tiny DNA samples, bones, teeth, ancient remains, and compare them to modern populations. They look for markers, little genetic fingerprints that say, yep, these people are connected. So going into this, scientists were confident. They expected DNA to back up the textbooks. One main migration, one dominant genetic signature, clean, comfortable. Basically, DNA was supposed to walk in and say, history was right all along. Instead, DNA walked in, looked around and said, who wrote this? Because the results didn't line up. Scientists started finding unexpected genetic markers. Markers that didn't trace back to one single group. Some appeared older than expected. Some didn't match the timeline. Some showed connections no one was looking for. And suddenly that straight arrow across the map, it started bending, splitting, branching. What looked like one migration started looking like many. Different waves, different times, different routes. So let me ask you, If DNA is the body's own record keeper, why isn't it telling the same story as the textbooks? This right here is where things get uncomfortable. Because when physical evidence disagrees with written history, someone has to be wrong, and textbooks don't like being questioned. Stay with me. It only gets messier from here. Because when the actual DNA results came in, they didn't just slightly disagree with textbooks. They walked in, flipped the table, and said, "Yeah, we need to rethink this. On screen right now, picture this. DNA on one side, history books on the other. Same question, two very different answers. According to the traditional model, everything should trace back neatly. One main migration, one general timeline, one story we could summarize in a single paragraph. But the DNA links refused to behave. Researchers started seeing genetic connections that should not exist, at least not according to the textbooks. Some DNA markers showed relationships between groups separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. Others suggested people were present in the Americas, much earlier than history books had ever taught. And this is where scientists got uncomfortable, because these weren't weak signals. They weren't glitches. They kept appearing, again and again. Let me ask you something. If you run the same test multiple times and get the same unexpected result, at what point do you stop blaming the test and start questioning the theory? Exactly. What the DNA pointed to was messy, multiple migrations, overlapping timelines, and routes that didn't follow a single straight path. In other words, human movement looked more like a tangled web, not a clean arrow on a map. So here's the uncomfortable truth. History didn't prepare us for complexity, but DNA doesn't simplify things for comfort. Drop a comment right now. Does this surprise you? Or did you always feel the story was too clean? Because once you see this split screen, DNA versus history, it's hard to unsee who's telling the messier, and possibly more honest, story. All right. Before we start canceling history books, let's be fair for a second. History isn't evil. It's just limited. Think about it. History was written by humans working with the tools they had at the time. No DNA labs, no genetic databases, no computers crunching thousands of samples in seconds. Just pottery shards, bones, carbon dating, and a lot of educated guessing. So when history told us a clean story, it wasn't lying. It was doing the best it could, with incomplete information. But there's more. History isn't written in a vacuum. It's shaped by political narratives, national pride, and sometimes by what people wanted to believe. Let me ask you something. If two versions of the past exist, one that's simple and comforting, and one that's messy and complicated, which one do you think usually makes it into textbooks? Exactly. Another big issue, missing evidence. Time destroys things. Bones decay. Settlements vanish. Entire cultures leave behind almost nothing physical. And history can't record what it can't see. This is where DNA changes the game. Not as a replacement for history, but as a new witness. DNA doesn't care about politics. It doesn't care about borders. It doesn't care if the story is inconvenient. It just reports what happened, quietly, cell by cell. So here's the line I want you to remember. History didn't lie. It just didn't know everything. Drop a comment if that sentence hits you. And if this is changing how you see the past, hit like, share this video, and stick around, because the final question we're heading toward is the one that really messes with everything. So, who's actually wrong? Before you point fingers at your old history teacher, let's slow this down for a second. History books are not useless. They gave us structure. They preserved stories. They built the foundation we're standing on right now. Without history, we wouldn't even know what questions to ask. But DNA isn't perfect either. It can't tell us names. It can't explain motives. It doesn't describe beliefs, languages, or cultures. DNA gives patterns, probabilities, and clues. Not a full movie with subtitles. So here's the real twist. The truth doesn't live on one side. It lives in the overlap. History gives us the narrative. DNA gives us physical evidence. When they agree, great. When they don't, that's not a problem. That's an invitation. An invitation to look again, to dig deeper, to admit we might still be learning. Let me ask you something. If science keeps improving, and new tools keep unlocking old secrets. Why would we assume the story is finished? Imagine reading a book and deciding the ending halfway through. That's what we've been doing with human history. So maybe the real answer isn't history is wrong or DNA is wrong. Maybe it's this: we're still discovering the real story. Drop a comment. Do you think the past is settled or still unfolding? And if this video made you question what you thought you knew, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves history. Because the most dangerous words in science aren't, "I was wrong." They're, "We already know everything." Okay, quick reality check. This isn't just about ancient bones and dusty textbooks. This matters right now. Because history isn't just something we read. It's something people live in. Let's start with identity. Where we come from shapes how we see ourselves, our stories, our pride, our sense of belonging. So when history gets simplified or incomplete, real people feel that. Now let's talk about indigenous history. For a long time, indigenous stories were pushed aside, oversimplified, or told about people instead of by them. DNA research doesn't replace those voices, but it can support them, confirm them, and sometimes even say, "Hey, they were right all along," and that leads to cultural recognition. When we understand that the past is more complex than we thought, it forces us to recognize cultures, journeys, and contributions that were ignored or erased. Let me ask you something. If new evidence shows a group has been here longer, or traveled farther, or endured more than we were taught, doesn't that change how they should be respected today? Exactly. Rewriting history isn't about erasing the past. It's about correcting the record. It's about making space for the truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. And here's the funny part. Humanity keeps acting shocked that history changes, as if learning new things is a bug, not a feature. So why does this matter for the future? Because the stories we tell shape the decisions we make, and a future built on incomplete stories can only go so far. Drop a comment. What part of history do you think deserves a second look? And if this made you think differently, like, subscribe and share, because understanding where we came from might be the key to where we're going next. If DNA shocked you even a little, hit the like button right now, before it sneaks into your house tonight and rewrites your old textbooks while you're sleeping. Go ahead. I'll wait. Did you do it? Good. You're safe. For now. Now, subscribe. Not because I said so, but because the next video is another mystery history forgot to mention. And trust me, you don't want to be the only one in the comments saying, "Wait, how did I miss this?" Speaking of comments, I need you to pick a side. No fence-sitting allowed today. Are you Team DNA or Team History? Drop it in the comments right now and explain your choice, like you're arguing with the internet at 2 a.m. And listen, if you have that one friend who says, "Everything we learned in school is 100% correct," this is your moment. Share this video with them, not aggressively, just casually. Like, "Hey, I watched this and now I have questions." Because learning new things isn't disrespectful to history. It's how history actually moves forward. So once again, like if your mind was stretched. Subscribe if you enjoy uncomfortable truths. Comment if you love a good debate. And share if you want smarter conversations in your group chat. History isn't finished. DNA isn't done talking. And this channel? Yeah, we're just getting started.